The Late Show with Ian Collins on talkSPORT.
It is the sound of the hooves, the sound of the hounds, the hunting pink, and that horn. Well, looking at our response on this debate, this kind of confirms what I thought. There doesn't seem to be really any appetite at all to bring back hunting. Can't really see it reflected in anything that we're seeing. So perhaps we've just simply moved on from that, from something that in 2002 looked so pressing to the Countryside Alliance. 2004, it was made illegal, and it ain't coming back anytime soon. Let's speak with Brian May, guitarist and prominent anti-hunting campaigner. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening, Ian. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks. And you started your own campaign as well, called Save Me.
Yes, indeed. It's a campaign which stands for the end of cruelty in the countryside.
Okay. I mean, it's interesting. I was saying there a second ago that, I mean, when I think of all the debates that, that took place back in sort of 2000, 2001, leading up to the ban, I mean, there was a real mobilised campaign from the countryside people. We were all told the Great Plague was going to return if somehow hunting stopped and unemployment would go through the roof. None of this has really happened.
None of it happened, did it? No. Well, they all said that the world couldn't exist without slavery, didn't they? But, somehow we managed to move forward. Thank God we're moving forward. And I think we have to keep moving forward. That would be my message.
And with your own campaign, I mean, you've talked about many animal issues before. I mean, how did this particular facet, if you like, of animal rights take your interest? Why was it specifically the countryside?
Well, I think it became an issue at the election when it looked certain that if the Conservatives got in, I mean, I actually voted Conservative most of my life, I have to tell you, but I began to realise that if Cameron got in, there was a good chance that they would try and bring back legalised the hunting of animals with packs of dogs. And I was outraged because I thought, my God, at least we're heading towards civilization. And it seemed like it was all about to fall into pieces. Sure. Now, we have a coalition which has a slightly different emphasis, but it's very much influenced by those core people. And I think there is still a grave danger that they still want to bring this horrendous thing that they call a sport back to the countryside.
But interestingly, there are quite a lot of the new younger Tories who wouldn't vote for it.
Absolutely, which is great, and I'm very happy. Save Me is actually in touch with many of the Tories who feel this way. Yes, it's not a political issue, really. I mean, I had to get political in a sense, but it's an issue which should be above politics. We should not be abusing animals, and I think this goes across the board. I mean, personally, I don't eat animals, and I think there's a good case for not eating animals, but not everybody feels that way. But the idea of causing an animal suffering just for the pleasure of it is so abhorrent to most Britons, I think, to most people in Britain, that it's unthinkable that we should return to this awful practice.
What do you say, Brian, to people like the Countryside Alliance? We spoke with Jim Barrington earlier on. He said this is, it's not about sport, it's not about cruelty, it's about countryside management, and this is the most effective way to do it. We can shoot.
I have to laugh, really. These are the old things that are always trotted out there. And basically, they want to dress up and go out and have fun killing things. I mean, there's no getting away from it.
But do you really think they do? Do you really think they think, actually,
absolutely.
what a great day to cull a living creature?
Yes, I think the core of them do. There's a lot of people who go out just for the ride, and I can appreciate that. Nice fresh air, let's chase across the countryside. But there's a core of people who want to see that fox torn apart, and it makes them feel good. It's like sex to them, I suppose. But to me, that's not the kind of thing you can allow to go on in 2010. We used to burn witches at the stake. We used to have slaves, I'm sorry, it all has to go. We cannot be abusing animals just for the hell of it.
But of course, as he said, at the moment, you can flush out a fox with a couple of hounds. You can still do that and then shoot it, and you might shoot its jaw off, its back leg. You might not kill it. I mean, there are dangers with the current legislation.
Well, I think we'd all like to see the current legislation properly enforced for a start. I mean, unfortunately, when this law was brought in, the Prime Minister shot the law in the foot immediately, as he's revealed in his autobiography. I couldn't believe that, really.
That was extraordinary, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so we can no longer believe that the law didn't work. That's all bullshit, Basically, it was torpedoed as soon as it was passed, and it's a wonder. I mean, now there have been many convictions of the law, and it's one of the most successful anti-cruelty laws ever passed in this country.
So I understand.
Yeah, I mean, it's strange that this whole episode of Emperor, the stag, has come up recently. And I think, you remember this magnificent creature was popped off like a guy with a gun because he wanted to put the antlers on his wall. And I think the outrage that that's caused in this country has been a good thing. I think people really are realizing that this is the tip of a huge iceberg.
Well, and sometimes sometimes an argument or something comes along where there is no other side to the argument. And I made this point on a TV show yesterday, which you also popped up on, of course. Yesterday morning. That anybody who decides one morning that they want to take a gun and shoot a beautiful creature like that for the sake of putting antlers on their chimney breast has something wrong with them.
Oh, no, I think it's sick, I have to say.
It's simple as that, isn't it?
I would say so, yeah. You probably saw I issued a challenge to this show. I said, if you really believe in what you're doing, you think you're a man and you think this isn't good, stand up and be counted and tell us why you think it's okay to kill some defenseless animal just for the sake of its antlers.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say it very clearly. So on that program, I wished I had said more, but I'll say it now if you don't mind. The cruelty has to stop. It's time. The hunting has to stop. We should move on from this. And I would advertise, if you'll let me, please join us at saveme.org.uk, and let's try to stop the abuse of our British wild animals.
Here's my concern, though, Brian, with some of these kind of campaigns, which are all fabulous, and I think most people would want to go to your website and support that cause. But what is, and this comes up time and time again, what is the difference between killing a fox and killing a rat?
Do you know what? In my mind, very little. And I think we abuse rats as well. I think we abuse all the species.
Yeah, we've got to kill the rats, though, haven't we? The rats are, they're diseased creatures.
Well, you know why they're diseased? Because we forced them down the sewers. I mean, you're brought up with all these ideas of vermin and stuff, and I believe, and maybe a verminous animal doesn't have any feelings. Well, it ain't true. All animals have feelings. All animals, whether they have a disease or not, are worthy of respect and worthy of a decent life and a decent death. I would not be going out and killing rats willy-nilly. I hate to see all these poisons around in gardening centres, because you're going to poison your cat. And
but we'd be knackered, wouldn't we, without them, and we'd be overrun with rats now.
I think we've
reached a point.
Let's make that a separate discussion. I think there's another way that we could deal with rats, and I think we can deal with all the species rather than just saying, let's kill them. As soon as something's a problem, let's kill them. Well, it ain't right. We are not the only important species on this planet by a long way.
As a rock god, Brian, and I know you'll hate me saying that, but
flattery will get you everywhere.
Have you ever had this argument with Brian Ferry?
No, I haven't actually.
Because you obviously know Brian.
I know him a little, yeah, and occasionally we eat in the same restaurant, but we just sort of nod to each other, and I know that all that is under there. Maybe one day we would have this discussion. Yeah. But, to me, there's no two ways about this. It has to change. I remember when it seemed impossible that we would stop people smoking in restaurants. We said, there's too powerful, it's much too powerful. Well, there's powerful forces working against us, but we will win this. We will stop torturing animals. We will stop doing this.
Well, I urge people to go to your website, which is... It's save-me.org.uk, is that right?
Save-me, yes, .org.uk. And it's on Facebook as well. Come and find us on Facebook.
Good work. Thanks for coming on with us, Brian.
Thank you, Ian.
Really appreciate that. That, everybody, is Mr. Brian May. I mean, I think we cannot underscore enough how delighted we are to have a real rock god on with us, but a proper campaigner, a man who really feels. He doesn't need to jump on a cause for some form of publicity. He's been there, done it, seen it. This is something he chooses and follows from the heart, and he really, really does, and I absolutely know that. So go to that website, save-me.org.uk, and if you feel strongly, as Brian May does, and you can support what he's standing for and read more about it as well. We allowed Brian May to make us late for the news, you see. We don't mind that, because it's Brian May. And we're back right after this.